So good afternoon again. My name is Mariah Washington. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at New York City Emergency Management. I'm super excited that several of my amazing colleagues will be presenting around business continuity and records keeping and best practices for preparedness for all of those who are small businesses and or you might have a home with a business attached to it. You're going to get all the best resources right here today. We are recording this session, and so within a week or so, you will receive the live recording via a YouTube link. Throughout this presentation, we encourage you to document your questions. You can do that by going to the Q&A section and typing in your questions, or you might say, you know, Mariah, I can't see that. I only see chat. That's fine. Go to the chat, and there you can insert the questions. We're going to hold the questions to the end because we have 4 presenters in all. We've been doing some practice, and so we packed a lot of great information. And so again, hold your questions, but put them in the Q&A box, put them in the chat box. Some of you might have just joined. I gave a little tip. If you want to see live closed captioning, there's an option at the bottom of your screen. It should say live transcript, or it might be an icon that says CC for closed captioning. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to pass the mic over to my wonderful colleague. Alyssa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mariah. Welcome everyone to the final installment of our National Preparedness Month webinar series. Today's webinar is Business Continuity and Records Keeping Practices for Preparedness. My name is Alyssa Borger, and I'm the Strategic Partnership Specialist here at New York City Emergency Management. Today, we are joined by Bernadette Nation and Abel Lopez from New York City Small Business Service, and Kristen Justum, who is our Deputy Director of Records here at NYSEM. New York City Emergency Management helps New Yorkers before, during, and after emergencies through preparedness, education, and response. To accomplish this, NYSEM has more than 240 emergency management personnel in a variety of roles. But we also have the support of other agencies, such as small business services, that play a key role in what we do. The Strategic Partnerships Unit provides resources, information, and support for the city's businesses to help make them resistant and resilient to disasters. To help support our efforts, we work with New York City Small Business Services. We are able to share resources pre- and post-incident. The response work done by SBS helps provide NYSEM with situational awareness and supports our monitoring of response and recovery efforts to an incident. And it also helps highlight the needs of the private sector. With all of this, we are able to provide our partners with trusted information and are able to share the concerns and impacts that directly relate to the private sector. Next, I'm going to turn it over to the Small Business Service team to hear what they do.
Is that my time now? Good afternoon, all. My name is Bernadette Nation. I'm the Executive Director at the Department of Small Business Services, New York City. I am joined by my colleague and team member, Abel Lopez. And I actually have been working with NYSEM for 2 decades, working together to assist small businesses and support them during physical disasters or events that may disrupt their business. And our job is to try to help you. We respond to the emergency. We also try to mitigate the impacts of that emergency, and we definitely try to get you back into business in an expeditious manner. I'm ready to go to the next slide. This is our mission statement. New York City Department of Small Business Services helps unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting New Yorkers to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building thriving neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. Next. This is a history of not only our unit, but the fact that we've been working for the last 4 administrations. Again, we started in my unit, was actually created by Deputy Mayor Rudy Washington back in 1998, and we went through all 4 mayors, and we are working with the present administration and still working with NYSEM. Next. Okay, here's our webinar agenda. We have 4 parts of this, which is identifying hazards, the emergency preparedness, know how to respond, emergency action plan, and recovering from an emergency. This photo, these 3 photos you see are 3 different types of events or disruptions that may impact you. It can be anything from facilities disruption, which could be a capital improvement project, which is the first slide, or the first photo, I should say. The next photo is actually a disaster in progress. This was in Queens. And the last is in Flatiron District, when we had a Con Edison asbestos explosion. And that explosion closed down the street for 19 days. We worked closely with NYSEM to help those businesses recover and get back into business as soon as Con Ed was able to clean up the area. So these types of disruptions can really impact your business. You may not have any physical disaster, but you're impacted by business interruption. Next slide, please. Oh boy, here we go. Identify most common hazards. As you see here, what we try to help you and what we want you to identify is the hazards that will most likely affect your business and plan for those first. You need to assess the type of impact it may have on your business, and it can be anything from flooding, utility disruption, facility disruption, and or physical damages. And lastly, plan to stay in business by creating or updating your business continuity plan. That will help you outline how you will preserve your business crucial functions. And if we may turn on this video slide, this is an actual disaster in progress. This is a business that was impacted by Tropical Storm Ida last year.
Oh my God, we put garbage bags on our feet. It's very bad. Oh my God. We just got a beer delivery too.
Look,
It's coming up from the, oh my God, no, it's coming up from the cement.
look.
It's coming up from the cement. There was an explosion underground. There was an explosion underground.
This video actually shows you a restaurant's basement, their basement, where all their supplies and their inventory and their machinery was actually destroyed by the flooding event as a result of Ida's tropical storm. This is what you have to plan for. This may happen to you. Next slide.
Oh my God.
Oops. Okay. These are just examples of emergencies that impacted small businesses in New York City. This is a historical account. We have responded to September 11, 2001, the World Trade Center attack, which, as everyone knows, was devastating and destroyed lives, but thousands of businesses in New York City were impacted, and not only businesses in the immediate area, but the entire city. And lastly, as you see here, 2021, Hurricane Ida. Hurricane Ida impacted all 5 boroughs, and it was really devastating on small businesses, just as the last video we showed you. Next slide. General business preparedness. Now, these bullets are very important. I'm going to quickly go through them, but let's start with, you have to develop a business continuity plan. You must determine vital staff. Develop a flood mitigation plan. Keep copies of important documents you may need to rebuild your business electronically and hard copy in a separate location. That is very important. Please not only have your records on site, have it stored off site just in case you experience physical disaster. Review your commercial lease and understand your responsibilities. Review existing insurance coverage. That is so important, insurance. Check smoke alarms, smoke detectors, and assess fire suppression systems assess your fire suppression system is up to code. Very important. Next slide. Thank you. Cybersecurity. That is also very important. Create multiple backups of all critical and sensitive data. Never open spam mail. Secure your Wi-Fi network. Make passwords long and strong. Keep a clean machine. Keep software up to date and review privacy and security permissions. All of this is important. We live in the 21st century. We live in the age of information. All of these bullet points are very, very important to the continuity of your business. Next slide, thank you. Insurance, insurance, insurance. It is so important for our small businesses to have insurance. That is one of the main functions in business continuity. Insurance is a non-negotiable cost of doing business. Assess total value of current equipment, merchandise, and interior finishings to understand if current insurance policy provides sufficient coverage. Insurance policies vary, so check with your agent or provider about physical losses, flood coverage, and business interruption. Is flood insurance appropriate for you? Obtain quotes from 3 different insurance companies and understand what your policy covers. Know your deductibles. Insurance is very important. Next slide. Know how to respond. Emergency action plan. As you see here, we have a photo of a city street completely shut down of vehicular traffic. That may happen to you. This is actually on 23rd Street in Chelsea, when there was a terrorist attack. And there were over 50 businesses that experienced no physical damages, but they were shut down from vehicular and pedestrian traffic. That means no business continuity. That means no business operations. Here, we did work very closely with NISM to actually steer and guide pedestrians and potential customers to food establishments so that they can obtain their daily merchandise, and the business was able to operate. But it was under the operation of no vehicular traffic, no pedestrian traffic. These are one of the services that we can provide you during an emergency such as this. We try to help you to keep your business operational during an actual street or vehicular and pedestrian shutdown. Next slide, please. Emergency response. Recovering from an emergency. We're here to help you get back to business after an emergency. Our emergency response team works closely with New York City Emergency Management, NISM, and other key city agencies to assess the impact to your business and help you restore operations as soon as possible. Next slide. Here are some of the services we provide. One of the key services, or maybe 2 to 3 of the key services that we provide are, we act as the liaison between your insurance concerns and New York State Department of Financial Services. That is the state agency that regulates the insurance industry. We work with them to make sure that your insurance policy provides you with what exactly you have paid for in the event of a disaster. Free legal advice. This is so important because your lease is a legal document and you will need a lawyer to help you through that lease and to find out what you're responsible for and what your landlord is responsible for. We have free or pro bono legal advisors to help you with advice with your lease agreement and save money. We work with about 38 to 50 small business lenders. So in the event that you may need a loan, and these loans will be at low interest because it is as a result of a disaster, and we are the liaisons to steer you to that resource. Next slide, please. Our New York City Solution Centers can connect you to the resources you need to start, to operate, and to grow your business. In New York City, we have small business solution centers in every borough, and they are in key commercial corridors so that it is near you and you can go there to get advice with these 9 services, from business courses to MWBE certification, and it's all free. Next slide. Stay connected with SBS. This is how you will stay connected through social media to our agency on all resources, including emergency preparedness and emergency response. Next slide. Thank you for participating. And I really appreciate this time to bring this important information to you. And as you see here, we have 2 email addresses. The eru@sbs.nyc.gov gets you directly to our unit, the Emergency Response and Intergovernmental Services team, our business prep, which is business preparedness at sbs.nyc.gov, and lastly, our website. nyc.gov/businessprep. With that, I will turn it over to Nysum. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Alyssa, before you move forward, I just wanted to remind all participants that we would love for you to start dropping in your questions in the Q&A section, as well as the chat. I can imagine that this is a lot of information, so there is no wrong or right question. As your thoughts are flowing, please drop those questions into the chat box or into our Q&A section. We are really looking forward to responding to these questions later on. Alyssa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Bernadette and Small Business Services, for that great overview. As Mariah said, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat. We're here to answer everything that we can. And I'm going to move over to Kristen to talk a little bit more about best practices around records keeping. Kristen?
Thanks, Alyssa. My portion of this webinar is going to be brief and high level. It's going to be a brief high level presentation regarding records and being prepared for disaster. Before you can determine the best way to keep your organization's records safe and ensure continued access to them, you have to first be able to identify your records. As defined by the Society of American Archivists, records are information or data created or received by an organization in the course of its activities. Records are important to an organization because they have value for a number of reasons. Think about your day-to-day activities and what documents are required to complete your tasks and keep your organization running. These are operational records. Next, you have financial records, which are vital to an organization to track spending costs, pay employees, apply for grants, just to name a few of the many reasons why these types of records need to be accessible before, possibly during, and after a disaster occurs. And depending on the type of institution you're associated with, you may have legal responsibilities to retain certain documents for a set length of time. For instance, you may be subject to an audit, so it's vital that these records are preserved for the time required. Last but not least is material that documents the history of your organization, important events, etc., that may not affect you operationally if destroyed, but the loss of these records would diminish the institutional memory of your organization. So now that you can identify the type of records that your organization has, you need to know how to keep them safe. First, you've got to know what you have and where you have it. Is it a hard copy, digital, stored on site or at another location? Conducting a records inventory is vital even if you're never impacted by a disaster. Where you store your records is also important. If they're in vulnerable locations such as a basement, which may be the first place to flood, or some other area likely to be impacted by a natural disaster, you want to either move them to a safer location, or if that's not an option, take appropriate precautions, like ensuring records are stored on shelving units, not on the floor. Even without a disaster, things like environmental controls are important, especially for the preservation of long-term records. You want to make sure that you maintain the appropriate humidity and temperature levels and that they're consistent with no big fluctuations. As Bernadette mentioned, if you have digital records, backups are one of the best ways to ensure that you have access to documents should a disaster occur. But where should you store them? In a location that's different from the original record, for example, the cloud or offsite, preferably at a location that's a considerable distance away. If a hurricane were to hit and damage a location where the records are stored, having a backup in the same location means it's likely that these copies will also be destroyed. Finally, who has access to the records? If an emergency strikes and only one person knows where the records are located, or they're the only one with a key or code to the room, how will you get to the records to ensure they're safe? You've identified your records and taken every precaution possible to keep them safe, but what else can you do to mitigate the impacts a disaster might have on your organizational records? You can have a disaster preparedness plan. An emergency plan isn't just for people and pets. You also have to think about your important organizational documents. Having a plan that details what records are vital, where they're stored, and listing all emergency contacts is essential. Part of the plan will focus on steps to be taken after a disaster occurs, which is disaster recovery. For digital records that are backed up and safe, not much may be required, but for physical records, time is of the essence. Unfortunately, there isn't a one-size-fits-all response to any number of disasters could impact your organization's records, be they natural or man-made. The disasters, not the records. Fire and smoke damage would require a different response than water damage, though with a fire, you may also have water damage from sprinklers or from a fire department response. And if water damage records haven't been accessible for quite some time, things like mud and mold may further impact the condition of the records. So if a disaster does impact your organization, where do you start? After the event is over and it's safe to enter the location where the records are stored, a conditions assessment should be conducted to determine the scope of the damage, what's been affected, and the extent of the damage. Next, appropriate steps must be taken to recover those records that are salvageable, because not all of them may be. If the job is small, it may be undertaken by the organization's staff. If it's larger or more complex, such as if there's mold or other hazardous material, an experienced vendor may have to be retained. It may be helpful to keep supplies readily available, some of which may already be stocked in your building. These include items such as buckets, mops, paper towels, disposable gloves, plastic bags, and I don't have it listed here, but fans are also good. Obviously not pointed at the records, but they help to dry out the area. Unprinted newsprint sheets for layering between wet books or documents, but you want to make sure it is unprinted, because if it's printed, it could transfer onto the documents. Freezer paper and cardboard boxes, just to name a few. I've included the names of sites that might have information you can use to assist your organization should a disaster occur. These organizations also have a lot of good information that you can review prior to a disaster and potentially implement any suggestions that they have at your organization. There are also sites listed that carry supplies such as University Products, Gaylord, and Uline that you may want to have available in the event of a disaster. Remember, disasters don't have to be hurricane level big. A burst pipe can do plenty of damage to your association's records. I'm not sure if they'll be sending out the slide deck, but if they do, I've also linked to all the sites on the slide. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for those tips and sharing those resources. In addition to Kristen's resources and the resources provided by Small Business Service, I've included some more resources for you here. First, in case you want to get in touch with the Strategic Partnerships Unit, you can email us at strategicpartnerships@oem.nyc.gov. Next is our Partners in Preparedness page. If you'd like to learn more about what we can offer for the city's businesses, please feel free to check out our website. And you can also see some of the resources that we provide, such as webinars like this, tabletop exercise toolkits, and much more. FEMA also has great resources for businesses and individual preparedness. So we've linked Ready Business here. And finally, we have another link to SBS's website, where you can find more information discussed in today's presentation, and you can find the number for their hotline. Next, we will go to questions. Mariah?
Yes, thank you. One moment. All right, I'm looking, we have a very great representation of folks. I'm not seeing any questions just yet. So we'll hold space for you all to go ahead and insert any questions. You can put it in the chat, or you can put it in the Q&A section. Ms. Bernadette, this is for SBS. It's a curiosity, you know, when it's an individual component, people know to call 311. Is there a certain hotline for small businesses to call if they have been impacted by a local level emergency?
Yes, yes. Our ERU email address, which I read off earlier. I don't know if Abel could go back to that page right quick.
The email is
Thank you.
eru@sbs.nyc.gov.
Thank you, Abel. That will get you directly to our email listing, and we will get back to you within, if not right away, within 24 hours. We will reply to that email. We also, if able, you can read our hotline number.
Sure. The hotline number for our agency is 888 SBS 4 NYC, and that number is 888-727-4692. Again, that's 888-727-4692.
That hotline number will get you to a representative. They will respond right away to your question or questions. And if it is on the weekend, please leave a message and we will get back to you as soon as possible, within 24 hours. Thank you.
Another question that has floated through is, again, comparing individual household preparedness to preparedness for the business. Is there a starter kit of any sort that people should look into purchasing? Where should they start? Because all of this information is so overwhelming.
Thank you for that question, Mariah. The slide deck that we just showed, that should be able to give you the resources and the information to help you plan for a disaster. But one of the main items that you should have is insurance, business insurance. That is a number one. I've been doing this for 2 decades and I've met scores of businesses that did not have insurance and they had physical damages. That means you have to go into your pocket in order to rebound from that emergency. So insurance is vital. Next, you have to, again, and NYSEM pointed out a few items here, you have to have individual employees that can help during a disaster. You definitely have to call your vendors and let them know you're not going to be open because you just had a fire or there was a flood event or a building collapse. Anything can happen. You have to prepare for that. So I do advise that I'm so glad you're recording this because the information that you're getting today is important, from what the Small Business Services, Emergency Response Unit, and Preparedness just showed you, to what NYSEM, the list that NYSEM had, and particularly the cyber security. Again, we live in the 21st century, we live in the information age, and it is so important to protect that piece of stored and active information. You have to be able to communicate. So that's important.
And Baron, if I may add,
Yes.
In our slide, we mentioned our digital library, which is www.nyc.gov/business prep. In that website, we have a digital library of an emergency planning checklist. So that checklist you can fill out and you can print out, and it would help you develop your business continuity plan or emergency action plan. Even if you have a house, this would help you follow that format to ensure that you are prepared for whatever event may follow. And I'll drop that link on the chat also.
Thank you, Abel. That's very important. And that's information that you could tack up on a whiteboard, tack up on a cardboard, on a cork board, and or your refrigerator.
Thank you. Kristen, this question is for you. If people, with technology, We know that there's some documents you absolutely need a hard copy version of. Are there recommendations of any type of programs or structures that people can put it into a cloud, like are clouds safe? Because we heard about cybersecurity and being mindful of what you store in the cloud. So, you know, if I'm a business, can I put my documents in the cloud, or do I need to keep all these hard copies?
Again, I would say I'm not the tech person, even though I have to deal with digital records. But so maybe in the future, having someone from IT would be a good group to have on here. But it's like anything else that you do in the digital world. You want to make sure, you want to vet if you're going to use a cloud, that they're safe. Look at, you could ask them about if they've had any hacks, not just even hacking, but if they've gone down, because there's still the potential to lose. Everyone thinks cloud and digital records are the end all be all, but you can still have issues. So you just want to make sure that you're going with someone that's safe and respected if you're going to be storing your important documents there.
Thank you. We want to hold space again. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat or the Q&A. And if not, panelists, if you have any closing remarks, you each had robust presentations. If there were 3 things or 1 thing that people can do today, what would you want to share? And we'll go with SBS first, and then we'll hop over to Kristen and then close out with Alyssa.
Thank you, Mariah. Insurance, insurance, insurance. And I state that 3 times all the time. It is so important. That is going to be your cushion in the event of a physical disaster. Yes, you may have what we call a soft disaster where the area is shut down. So that's business interruption. There's also a component within your insurance policy that you can add, which is insurance interruption. In the event that you don't experience that physical disaster, but give you an example, gas explosions. We had 2 several years ago, one in East Harlem and another one in the East Village. And it shut down scores of businesses, and they had no physical damage, but they were shut down because vehicular and pedestrian traffic was not allowed due to the extent of the physical damage of 1 or 2 buildings. That can shut down an area, a 5-block radius area. Now you're in that 5-block radius area and you cannot operate. So it's very important to be mindful of insurance, and definitely business interruption insurance. Abel, you may have something to add?
Sure. The advice I would give is ensuring that you read your lease. Many times business owners are very happy to start a business, but the last thing they eventually end up doing is reading the lease. They only read the lease if something major comes up, whether there's an issue with the landlord or there's a problem that arises as a result of an event. So ensuring that you know what's in your lease, and ensuring that if you need help, you can reach out to our agency to help you with getting pro bono legal advice. And insurance that, again, Bernadette mentioned it, don't let your insurance lapse. There's many different ways that you can obtain help. We would guide you through the process, and ensuring that that there's help within the city of New York. And please also don't think that it'll never happen to you, because we've seen it event after event after event, and you have to make sure that you're prepared. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say know what you've got, back it up and make sure it's in a safe location that's far from your other records, and be prepared. I know you don't know what's going to come, but you can do the best that you can to secure your records and make sure they're safe, and also be prepared if there is an emergency. Have at least some idea of what the next steps are, because if something happens and you have absolutely no idea what to do, just a few steps can help and make a big difference.
Thank you. And Alyssa, do you have any closing remarks?
I just want to say that we'll be sharing this presentation with everybody, so you'll have access to all the resources that we mentioned. Please view them, add them to your library of resources. And also, you have our emails. Please feel free to reach out to us at Strategic Partnerships, at Records, at SBS. You have our emails. Please feel free to always reach out with us with questions. We're happy to help, and we are another resource for you. So please don't hesitate. And I want to thank our presenters for joining us today and providing all this great information and really having this conversation as we wrap up National Preparedness Month. And thank you to everybody for joining with us.
Thank you so much. Stay safe,
Thank you.
stay in touch. We'll share the updates and upcoming events. You know where your resources are. Reach out. Do not wait until it's too late. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.